I'm having a real hard time with something right now because I was on a live a little bit ago. You guys believe in repenting of your old ways and putting faith in Christ, right? Like that is a part of what it means to be saved, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just double checking because some people out there, I mean, they'll say that everyone is going to heaven regardless, even though the Bible says.
No.
I'm like, what is going on? Like, how have people arrived at this insanity?
Yeah.
The Bible says that you can tell somebody saved by their fruits. If they don't look like a saved person, odds are they probably aren't one.
I don't know. I'm like, so everybody's going to heaven. That's what you're trying to tell me. Everyone will return. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. That's not the Bible I read. That's not. That's not what the hell are we dealing with right here?
The Bible also says broad is the path to destruction, narrow is the path to salvation.
Yes.
Implying that there's a minority of people who are saved.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just making sure, because
Hey, we shouldn't join the minority clubs.
Mhm.
You're like, we're the victim, we're the minority.
right.
Sorry if my voice is a little unsteady right now. I'm still overcoming the sickness.
No, you've come a long way. You really have.
You sound healthy. I thought you had the plague, bro.
When I get sick, I don't know. Like I have like the most severe form of man flu. I just kind of like lay down and die.
I had to call the cops today.
What
Why's
for?
that?
When I was at work and I was performing maintenance on a baseball field, and some people wanted to use the field, and I told them no. And the elderly gentleman decided to say, well, what happens when I just go on the field? And I said, I'll call the cops and have you trespass. So he walked on the field. I was like, okay.
Really?
Some
Yeah.
people do not understand cause and effect.
So you told him it was closed for maintenance, I guess?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't let him on that field, but if they would have told me who said that they had let him on there before, because, like, they said that someone let him on, I was like, well, give me a name, and they couldn't give me a name. I was like, I mean, what then I'm not going to let you on. Like, I mean, there's a lock on the gate for a reason. If you knew the combo, I couldn't say anything. But since you asked and you tried to tell me a story, no. You know? Especially because, like, I'm responsible for the field. If I leave and I let somebody go play on it, it makes it look like I didn't do my job. Right? Though there's not supposed to be any footprints in the dirt, and like they were just playing on it, and it made me look stupid.
Right.
What if they just told you a random name? Hey, Daryl said it was cool. You know?
Well, I would have asked if. Well, number one, I don't know anybody by the name of Daryl. Right? I would have just said, "Yeah, let me go check with my boss real quick." I would have asked. Right? I would have checked, but they didn't have a name. They didn't even try to come up with a name. So I'm like, well, then. How do I know anybody even gave you permission, bro? Like, no. Right? Like, I'll just end up having to come back and clean up after your mess.
I'd be like, hey, for a price, I'll redo all of this.
I wouldn't trust them to pay me. But it's all good. I just didn't want, I'm like, look, dude, it's not hard. Like, I have to make sure these fields are ready for when people who are paying come to play.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, it wasn't until I was older that I realized that there's a guy's job who has to make sure that these fields are actually looking good. When I was a kid, I'd grab my dirt bike and I would tear up baseball fields. And I think about it now and I'm like, that baseball field was in pristine condition. Somebody made it.
Jeremiah, if I ever seen you out on my baseball field with a bike, I would have wringed your friggin' neck in front of everyone.
And I realized that now, and I'm like, man. I mean, I was just like a dumb teen at the time, so like. But like,
It's
they didn't
not
have a lock on the
easy.
gate. You just open the gate and walk in, but like, yeah, like there was no.
It's
sign
not
or
easy. Like you got. Well, I mean, it doesn't do any good when you put a sign. They just ignore it. Trust me, I know.
I always respected the sign, but there was no lock on the gate. There was no sign. You could just flip the latch and walk in. And I mean, it was a public park. I was a plumber in like 4-degree weather here in Knoxville. And I remember one of our jobs, we had to deal with a lot of emergency leaks. All we did all day long was emergency leaks. We would just turn off their water and then say, we'll get back to you some other time. Or we'd like cap it off somewhere so that they could still use their water, but not have a leak going through the house. I remember one, I said, okay, where's the problem? And they said, see that flat spot? That's where the septic bursted. And it flooded over the water, and we need to turn off the water. But it all froze over since last night. So my boss handed me a shovel and said, start digging. So I needed to break through ice in 4-degree weather, chisel out septic ice, and then through septic water, plunge my hand in and find the valve to turn off in 4-degree weather. Oh, man, that was miserable.
I mean, I can top that, but I'd rather not explain the disgusting details.
My job's worse than your job. We could do that all night.
Dude, no, you do not want to know how bad my jobs have been. You don't want to know.
On me, and you seem to be doing more blue collar work than me. I bet you'd win. I'm gonna.
Oh, I guarantee. I've seen some gnarly shit, bro. I'll just tell you that.
You know, the one thing I didn't realize, and I kind of took for granted while I was a plumber, is I was walking off COVID, and I lost all smell and taste. So I couldn't smell anything for the entire couple months that I was working as a plumber. I couldn't smell for 2 years. I remember I was working in a car detail bay, and they always said once the water hits this drain, it starts smelling like crap in here. And I was like, interesting. I've never smelled it. And then 2 years after I got sick with COVID, my smell started coming back. And I'm like, I can't do this job anymore. I quit. Every time we wash a car, it starts smelling like a septic field in there. And I'm like, why don't they clean the drains ever? And they're like, they're too lazy to. I'm like, well, then I'm leaving. I'm finding another job that smells better.
Some people have that ability.
Raptors in the chat.
Yeah, I knew he was gonna come. He can't help it. He's got nothing better in life to do but to come pick on Christians.
I mean, some of them just like that's like their joy. You know, so there's some content I want to put on our channel soon. It's a small Facebook Shorts creator whose whole thing is they're afraid to post their problem with Christianity on their normal Facebook because they're friends, I guess. So they made a like public account, and they're just like riffing on Christianity in their public account, which okay, great. A lot of their things is just like they have problems with Christianity that are really easy to answer. Sometimes I'm shocked how like these people's problems are so easy to answer, and yet they've always gotten crap answers. And sometimes they're honestly looking for truth, and they have crap answers. Anyway, I want to do like a response series where I just like shorts form content, respond to her content, where I just answer her questions. Because she has certain ones like, let me see if I can remember. She has ones like prayers don't actually do anything. Maybe they calm you down and like they work like meditation, but they don't actually do anything. And I'm like, well, I can talk about how they do stuff and like how they actually work and stuff. Now, just because they don't always serve you doesn't mean that God didn't hear your prayer. You're talking to God here, not a genie.
Right.
You know, you're putting a request before the creator of the universe, not a demand. And so when something doesn't go your way, I wouldn't be too surprised.
And the other thing is praying against God's will. A lot of people, they think that asking for something means receiving something, and that may be the case, but the difference being is what you're asking and what you're receiving are two different things. So they think that because my prayers weren't answered the way that I want them to be answered, that means that God doesn't exist.
Right.
It's like a selfish. I got everything I wanted from my mommy, so why shouldn't I get everything I wanted from my father in heaven? Right? Mad at Father in heaven because they didn't get the pony at Sweet 16.
Well, I gotta ask, like, when you asked your earthly dad for everything, did he always give it to you? Or did he say, no, I'm not giving you that?
Right.
I mean, I had to tell my kids no 10 times to watching another movie because we watched a movie and immediately afterward, they're like, I want to watch Mickey Mouse. And I'm like, no, we have to pace ourselves with how much TV we watch. And like, it wasn't that his prayer didn't get to me. You know, it's like, no, I heard you. I understood you loud and clear, which is a unique thing for my 2-year-old because he says gibberish half the time. But like, I understood you. I'm not going to give you TV 24/7.
What do you mean, Marquez? What do you mean by why does God create so many problems? What does that even mean?
I think it's funny people don't believe in him or people have such a big problem with him and then they give him so much credit for things. You say God created all these problems. God didn't create any of the problems. Humans create problems. God created paradise. Man messed it up. Well, technically woman messed it up. But, you know, mankind messed it up. And then from there, you know, God went to go and try to fix things. You know, he had his son die on the cross for our sins. And then we keep doing evil to each other. And because of the sin from the beginning, we have a fallen world now. God didn't create these problems. We did. And then we want to give God the credit for these things. I'm like, actually, no, God didn't do that.
Well, I mean, just like any other 2-year-old, when faced with responsibility, they default to, I want mommy, right?
And Raptor's over here saying the all-knowing, all-powerful God of the universe should have no problem fixing someone's problems. He doesn't have a problem fixing someone's problems, but he doesn't always fix your problems.
But do you know who does have a problem fixing problems? Scientists and evolutionists.
It hit the ground and it broke apart. He built something really cool for a 2-year-old, and he asked me to fix it. Well, not my problem. I didn't break it. Now, I'm smart enough to fix his Lego set. I saw what it was. I could have built it in a half second. I said, no, I believe in you. You do it. And I watched him fix his own problem.
What's the responsibility for cancer? What's the response? Raptor Blue's asking, what's the responsibility for cancer? That seems like a very malformed question from an individual who doesn't believe in anything. What are you talking about, Raptor? In what respect would God be responsible for cancer if you believed in him? And in what respect would anything be responsible for cancer if you didn't?
Yeah, why does somebody need to be responsible for the cancer?
No, the sins of the father are not cast upon the children. The children are fundamentally changed because of the sins of the father. What do you mean?
No, I looked it up in the Bible because I used to believe the Bible said sins of the father put upon the children. I looked it up. It actually says the opposite. It literally says the exact opposite. And I actually had to admit I was wrong in front of my family because I was like debating with them. I was like, no. It says the sins of the father passed to the children. I looked it up and it said the sins of the father are not passed to the children. And I was like, well, I'm wrong. I understand it's a popular belief, but it is not true.
Why did God create cancer? I don't know that God did create cancer. Did you ever maybe stop to wonder if it was the devil that created cancer?
No.
God created cellular reproduction. You know, the thing that keeps you alive from day to day when the sun tries to deteriorate you?
The sun is a deadly laser.
Mankind caused the fall. The devil loves to corrupt things. I don't know if I'd give the devil the credit for cancer, but the devil likes to corrupt things. Mankind caused things to get messed up. We created our own problems. Cancer is part of that mess up.
When you say the children inherited the sin, right? It's kind of a misnomer, and it's because of mankind's arrogance for the way that they describe things. The reality is, God made a promise, man was unfaithful to that promise, so God had to change things to make a different promise. Because man is not able to be responsible enough to handle the things that God gives him. So God has to do it for him.
So the chat is now chanting, why did God create the devil? And I would
Why
say,
did God create the devil?
well, so God created many angels. And Dustin, if I'm wrong in this and you want to give a different answer, that's great. God created many angels in heaven. God created Lucifer to be a vessel of worship. He was a worship leader. He was to point glory to God. He ended up looking at himself and saying, well, I'm pretty full of glory myself. I don't, like what God is doing. And there's more theories to why the devil didn't like God. But he didn't like God. He then rebelled and he changed. God didn't create the devil necessarily to be the bad guy. He knew he was going to be the bad guy, but he didn't create him as the bad guy. He created him as a worship leader. And then he chose to rebel and become the bad guy.
The devil was the archangel, the greatest among all creation. And when the devil found out that God was going to create man, the devil became jealous. Jealousy was not a creation of God, but an emotion as a consequence of being created. It's not an issue that God created the problem. It is an issue that God creates and that the creation has a problem with it. If you're so confused to the idea and you are asking a question like, why does God create problems? You are simply ignorant to the fact that God wants to set you up in such a way to where you don't need him, which was the original intent. Unfortunately, man also became jealous. Well, in this case, woman became jealous, and man sacrificed himself for love of woman. You think Adam didn't know what the consequence? You think Adam didn't know the consequences of eating the fruit when he ate the fruit? He was there when God said it. He knew, and he did it anyway because he loved the woman, which, by all accounts and respects, is him worshiping a false idol, holding above that which God is to be venerated. There are no false idols before me. So, in all reality, when you're talking about God creating sin, that's not how this went down. Jealousy, ignorance, and man's incompetence.
I think it's funny when people who have no clue what they're talking about accuse us of not knowing what we believe. How do
What do
we
you
not
mean
know
Adam didn't know what the You need to read that book again, Raptor. What do you mean Adam didn't know? It was one of the first commandments that God told to Adam. And then Adam had to explain it to Eve later. These people are retarded. You get an answer and then you start saying stupid shit.
So I just asked, did Adam know what he was doing when he took part of the fruit? And it says yes, according to the Bible interpretation, Adam knew exactly what he was doing. It goes on, but I'm just gonna end right there.
Yeah, what are you talking about, Raptor? He absolutely knew the consequences of his actions. He sacrificed himself for the love of the helper that God gave him, the woman. Well, okay, maybe. What do you
Adam,
mean he didn't understand? It was as clear as it could be. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. I want to say something as well. Adam understood. The whole principle was Adam worshiped Eve and cared more for Eve than God. So when he said, well, now Eve is going to die because Eve was beguiled by the serpent, he was looking at God and saying, hey, God, whatever you do to Eve, you're going to have to do to me too. He was joining Eve in that. Eve may have not known. Eve was tricked.
Serious.
Adam was not. Adam was told directly by God what would happen.
The knowledge of good and evil has nothing to do with consequence. You can know everything about consequence with knowing absolutely nothing to do with good and evil. If a rock falls down a hill, it has nothing to do with good and evil. But if it hits somebody as a consequence, then you have a full understanding of what might happen to the individual. If a rock hits somebody, they're going to get hurt. That is consequence. Has nothing to do with good or evil, Raptor. You idiot.
Okay, let's not insult the chat. They may be idiots, but let's not call them idiots on live air. I try to have right words come out of my mouth, even though sometimes they are out there to be evil. I do want to highlight
no knowledge of good or evil.
I do want to highlight that for those who watch this show and do care, know that there are people out there who do not care. Now, Dustin can get riled up and oftentimes look like the bad guy from a secular view. I get that. But everything Dustin says in this point is oftentimes true.
Nigga, please.
There are people out there, like Raptor, who will be calm, be cordial, will try to use logic, and will be fairly respectable. But when you actually look at their intention is only to make you look like an idiot. They're not trying to persuade you. They're not trying to understand you. They are simply there to try and destroy. And that is why Dustin gets the way he does, is he sees, hey, you're just trying to destroy. I'm not going to try to have a calm conversation with you. And it's stuff like that that makes us sick and tired. It's not the calm, rational people who actually care. It's the calm, rational people who are really just trying to get under your skin.
Oh, the level of ignorance. The level of ignorance. I'm not wrong all the time, Raptor. That is literally impossible.
I'm not accusing you guys of what you believe. I don't know what you believe. I point out what some people believe. But there's too many people on here. Like, let me see. We got 10 people watching at this very moment. If I said you all believe, that statement is going to be false, whatever it is. Because there's 10 different people. We're going to have 10 different views on different topics. If I said, you're all pro-abortion, well, that'd be incorrect. One of you might not be. I can't say what you believe because there's 10 different people here. What I will do is I will say many people believe, or a lot of people believe, maybe a lot of people in our chat believe. But if you don't fit that, then I'm not talking about you.
Name one thing. Sorry.
Yes, I make blanket statements about atheists all the time because a lot of atheists tend to agree with each other. Not all of them. I won't say all atheists believe something, but I will say a lot of atheists believe that nothing became something. That is a true statement. Not all atheists believe that. A lot of atheists. That's a blanket statement that is true. You may not believe that. There's different ideas on it. There's ideas of an infinite universe that condenses and compresses and explodes. But there are people who believe nothing became something. Again, there's lots of different beliefs in there. You get 10 different people, you'll have 10 different views.
True, yeah.
Can we read Genesis 1? I would love to read Genesis 1. So many people think Genesis 1 proves their point, and then it doesn't. If you let Genesis 1 be Genesis 1, it's an awesome chapter. If you don't let Genesis 1 be Genesis 1, then it's not. Like, if you try to make it your own thing. Here's what I will say, though. Genesis 1 doesn't have Adam in it, as far as I'm aware. That's Genesis 2.
Oh.
So I'm not exactly sure why Genesis 1, but I love looking over the creation story. In the beginning, God created.
Yeah.
Can you show me one example, Dargesh, of a heavier material in a crucible being lifted up by a lighter material? Can you show me one example, please? I'm waiting. I want to see this. If the Earth was ever truly because they're saying that I was wrong about plate tectonics, or I don't know. They're saying a bunch of stupid shit. If the Earth was ever truly molten, if it was ever truly molten, a block of molten rock, why are there heavy elements on the surface? Why?
Okay, first language.
What did I say?
You said the SH word.
Maybe I did.
Crap.
I don't know. Maybe I did. Anyway.
Second, when you start yelling that loud, your speaker cuts out.
But they're saying that.
I get it. Heavier things go down. Why are heavier things at the top then?
Why? What? Yeah, exactly. Explain it to me. Explain it. How does a heavier liquid, like a element, which is heavier than all the impurities, end up on the surface of a molten rock that was melted? Explain.
Okay. I think this is funny. Sable says Dustin also doesn't understand evolution and survival of the fittest. You know what? I don't understand evolution either because it doesn't work. Evolution, in the broad sense of amoeba turning into human over millions of years, does not work. It does not make sense. You actually look into it. There's no proof of it. There's no logic behind it. That's the fairy tale. A frog becoming a prince is the fairy tale. Anyway, verse 3.
No, it's fine. I'm just going to ignore them. They didn't come up with an answer. They say I'm wrong, but they have no example in any point or anywhere, scientific or nature, to show that anything that has ever been truly molten, I mean melted to the rock core, is going to lift a heavier element by a lighter one, displacing it so much that it makes it to the surface. They have no example, but they tell me I'm wrong. It's ridiculous. It's dumb. Can you show me one time, just once, where a heavy element that has been purified through heat has been lifted by an impurity to the surface? It doesn't exist. There's no such example. You people are
Well, so here's
I'm
the
serious.
Thing. So here's the thing. I'm getting a lot of people saying things like, where does light come from? That makes no sense. If it didn't come from the sun. God created the light from the beginning, right? You guys believe, now I can't say you directly, I'm going to be very clear. Many atheists believe that everything came from nothing. I think it's very easy to say light comes from God when many atheists say everything came from nothing.
I mean,
the other idea is to say that everything comes from an infinite universe, which I'd say everything comes from an infinite God. So, I mean, to try to make an argument that our idea is weirder or more kooky than yours.
You're not. You are not catching this, Oscar. Okay? Look, again, I'll explain this again. Okay? When you melt things in a crucible, the purities go down to the bottom. There's no disputing this. The heavier elements sink to the bottom. My contention is that the Earth was never fully molten, thereby giving explanation to why there are heavy elements on the surface. Dude, seriously.
So stable.
Go ahead.
So it says God created everything is so boring from a world building standpoint. Okay, you know what? I don't care if it's boring. If it's real, it's real. Some people accuse science of being boring. I don't. I think science is awesome. But some people do. And you know what scientists say? Science is still science. The truth is still the truth. It doesn't matter if it's boring or cool. If your whole thing is, well, that's boring, so we're going to change it to be some other answer. Well, then that's where the truth starts to fall apart. Don't do that. That's bad.
Are you telling me that there's liquid magma made of gold, diamond, or, I don't know, platinum, any one of the heavier elements? Can any one of you tell me that the liquid magma that is being pumped to the surface is pure gold? Is that what you're trying to tell me? That crystals were deposited along with magma and then they just re-solidified in the shape that they did? All these elements would be in the center of the earth. There is no arguing your way out of this. My contention is that the earth was never truly molten. What does diamonds being carbon have to do with anything? What does diamonds have to? What does that have to do with anything?
Okay, Dustin, let's focus a little bit more on fellowship and a little bit less on the rage baiting chat.
I'm not trying to rage bait. I want an actual answer. These
No, I'm
people
not
are
saying you are. I'm saying they
insane.
are.
Okay.
I'm saying the
Copy
chat's
that.
rage baiting. The chat's rage baiting. Let's focus on fellowship and building each other up, and a little less on the chat.
It's insane. It's insane. They're trying to convince me. Okay, I'm
We're trying to
done.
convince you that heavier things go to the top.
I'm
You're
like,
not going to win that one with them. You can't win against stupid. Don't even try to fight it.
what is wrong with you people? Coal just magically flies up from the core because it's a magma. Oh my god, the level of idiocy.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I can't take it. I can't take
We're going to get back to
it.
the Bible now. We're going to let the chat be the chat. Let's not argue with stupid because you can't. You physically can't. So the second day here, and God said, Dustin, any comments?
1.5 million.
Are they about this or are they about the chat?
They're about both. Well, no, it's not about the chat. They're about this, and the chat about this.
Fire away. Let's have some rage bait for a little bit.
Oh,
Hey, I don't mind yelling every once in a while. We just need to stay on topic.
well, no, it just doesn't make sense. Okay, like we'll say if we take both examples and what we're seeing for today, right? We see pockets of gold in places that don't make sense if the Earth was ever really molten. Okay, it makes more sense to have God form the Earth that way than it does to have a hot liquid ball of magma floating in suspended space, right? And somehow magically the elements just ended up sorting themselves out to where we have pockets of gold, pockets of platinum, and diamonds strewn all across the surface of the earth, at least in Africa for sure, that are supposedly comes from the center of the earth because of the pressure required in order to make them, but we find them on the surface.
Yeah, that's not how things work. The laws of thermodynamics state that things will head towards disorder and chaos. You get an even spread of mess.
All right, diamonds. There's. What are you going to tell me that the diamond was so hard and so pure element carbon that it magically floated to the top? I'm sorry. Is carbon an element, and as a pure element, is it heavier than the impurities around it? Wouldn't that, by nature, if it's melting, mean that it would fall to a gravity source? You guys don't have anything. You don't have an example. You have conjecture and innuendo. That's it. You're trying to tell me that a liquid magma that's viscous is going to pick up an element that's heavier than the material that it's suspended in and hoist it up against gravity hundreds of thousands of miles to the surface. To the surface! You people are insane!
Okay, now that we've had our rant, and I do want to clarify, like, do understand how things work. If you take some dirt and put it in a jar, and you shake it, or if you want to be more clear, take some sand, like gravel and clay, and put it in a jar, and you can actually see the layers form. Heavier stuff goes down, lighter stuff goes up. According to that, what you should see is all the heavier materials should go down. But yet that's not what we see. Now, if God created the universe, like you actually see in the Garden of Eden, he might place heavier materials that are very useful up closer to the surface, like he did. It actually mentions in the Garden of Eden where he places gold in special areas and where he places this over here in this area, no doubt for our benefit.
Instead of you guys saying I don't understand anything, can you show me a single example of where I'm wrong?
Not the Kent Hovind jar crap. Do you guys realize that the jar of dirt is not a Kent Hovind thing? It's not. They sell them on eBay all the stinking time. It's like that layer of glass with dirt in it, and you can flip it over, and you can see the dirt sorts of. That's not a Kent Hovind thing. It's a science thing. Leave Kent Hovind out of this. Like, if he so happens to use science, it's like if I wrote 2 + 2 = 4, and you're like, not Mr. So-and-so's lesson. What, can I not say 2 + 2 is 4?
Bro, you have nothing. You have zero examples of any time where a heavier element was lifted by a lighter element. You have nothing. You just keep saying magma isn't like water. What the hell does that even mean? Does that mean that magma will collect gold, a heavier element, and carry it to the surface from the center? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Are you saying that heavier elements don't fall when the material around them melts? What are we talking about, guys? You have no examples. You just keep telling me I'm wrong, but you have no examples.
Okay, let's move on to the 5th day. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. So now he puts birds in the firmament.
Mm-hmm.
And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the watchers brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowls multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the 5th day. So I want to point out here really quick. Evening and morning were 5th day. We got 1 5th day. It was not 1,000 years. It wasn't many days. It was 1 5th day. Secondly, birds and fish, anything in the ocean, their kind. Very clearly here, if you want to believe in the Bible, which there are people who want to believe in the Bible and then say gap theory, the Bible is very much so against anything producing another creature not after its kind. A bird is not going to evolve into a dinosaur. A dinosaur is not going to evolve into a bird. Fish aren't going to climb out of the ocean and turn into humans. That's not how it works. Okay, they say whales, which, by the way, it actually points out specifically whales here. People say like whales were cows that climbed back into the ocean or something.
Pakicetus, they were wolf-sized.
They were what?
Pakicetus, they were wolf-sized. That was the creature supposedly that evolved into a whale, which breaks their their law of I can't even phylology. I can't pronounce that word. Phylology or whatever.
Yeah, it just. Oh, and by the way, so someone says birds are dinosaurs. What evolutionary advantage would a feathery like bird have over a dinosaur? Like, you're telling me that a T-Rex turned into a chicken over millions of years? Oh yeah, that's smart. That's brilliant. I'm just saying, like, they're pterodactyls. You're saying the pterodactyls got feathers? Like, why? What's the point? That makes them more vulnerable because they can't fly without their feathers, where a pterodactyl doesn't need feathers. And by the way, what about all those in-between stages? What are those feathers useful for before they start to be able to help them fly? That doesn't make any sense. Why would they start growing feathers if it didn't help? If anything, it would just cause problems. And again, survival of the fittest would keep them away from growing feathers if they caused them problems. They would have to have an immediate, each generation would have to have an immediate use for those feathers, even though they still couldn't fly.
What? So feathers give somebody mating ability? By what measure does a feather give a creature mating ability? Look at my freaking feather.
Okay, well now hold on. Some birds do use their colorful palette for mating. I will say that.
No, they use a dance. They don't use feathers.
Well,
they don't use feathers. They use a dance. It's not their feathers. They're not mating because of feathers.
It's a colorful palette between music, dance, and oftentimes appearance. I will say, in the bird world, feathers are very useful to birds for those purposes. Now, dinosaurs wouldn't use feathers because they don't have feathers. And as they evolved feathers, if anything, mating habits are very traditional, meaning they would not be interested in feathers. They'd say, that guy's extra hairy for whatever reason. He's a creep. They wouldn't be looking towards the one with feathers. And yeah, someone says peacocks don't exist, I guess. And that's my point, is yes, some birds rely on their feathers. So don't tell me that birds don't use their feathers. My point is dinosaurs don't use their feathers because they didn't have any. And if they did create them for whatever reason, it would not be the attractive thing. It would be the weird thing. Verse 24 for the people who aren't following along. Anyway, that is...
These idiots are seriously trying to use the argument that they can affect the evolution of their feathers for the use of mating. That is the dumbest thing. You people are so stupid. Feathers are used for flying, my friend. You have zero evidence beyond conjecture and innuendo that the feather has anything to do with mating. We can use examples like the duck, where you can even see, in fact, the female duck has quote-unquote evolved faulty wombs for just such an occasion where somebody who thinks they look a certain way because of their feathers might try to force themselves on a duck, and the duck will reject them and use the faulty womb. You people are dumb. You really are dumb.
Point this out. And yes, feathers are used for mating. I'm not going to go around that. Actually, scientists drew a blue patch on the chest of some birds to see if that would make them more attractive. It was a special species that had a blue patch, and the bigger the blue patch, the more attractive the bird species was. They drew a big attraction. If you let me finish.
Attraction.
And they found that the bird.
You cut me off, actually.
What?
Did I?
Yeah, you did. I was right in the middle of my sentence, and you cut me off.
I'll let you go then. My bad.
No, feathers are used for flying. Okay, you're gonna say that feathers are evolved for the use of mating? That doesn't make sense. Attraction is subjective. What part of the bird evolved attraction? And then explain to me how it's tied to the feather before you just assert that because of a feather it made the I don't even know like what part of evolving feathers is about mating. If you can't make that straight line of common sense clear to me, I'm going to reject that outright just because scientists think that that's what it's for. The very clear purpose of feathers is to fly. The fact that you say because of mating, that's just idiocy dressed up as I don't know popularity.
Okay. So what I'm going to point out, I have a few things I want to say. One, feathers are actually used in mating. Science has proven that for birds. And I will get to why I disagree with the chat.
Can you show the proof? Can you show the proof? I want to see the proof.
Have you
Like,
heard
what
of
is the actual? No, I've heard of peacocks, and the feathers are not what. No, the feathers are not what dictates the mating practices. That's not even true. It's the dance. The dance is what.
It is their use of feathers in the dance. It is a big part. There was a story. I can't pull up the science stated article or anything, but what I can tell you is there was a test done where there was a special type of bird that had a blue patch on their chest, and they wanted to see if the bigger the blue patch, the more attractive the birds were. So they kidnapped a male bird, put a big blue patch right on its chest. They stained it in. And then they released it back out into the wild where they were watching these birds. And then they would steal the baby birds and they would do DNA tests on the birds to see who the parents were. And they found out that these birds that supposedly mate for life, the mother birds would actually go and cheat on their partner that they would mate for life with the bird with the artificially enhanced blue chest. And that actually
if what you're saying
partner would stay with it very devout where all the others would cheat. And so they found that certain feather patterns, certain colors, in fact, do create more attractiveness when it comes to mating. Now, that's
okay.
Not my point. If I could get to my point, because I'm trying to address the chat here. And we can agree to disagree. My point is...
no, but I mean, you can't just lay all that out there and not let me rebut.
Well, I will let you rebut, but I'm trying to get to my point, which is to address the chat. My point to the chat is we cannot know what dinosaurs would have done if they had acquired feathers. There is no proof. There is only speculation. We have bones. We don't even have feathers. We have bones. To say that this dinosaur acted a certain way because we have a bone in the dirt is ludicrous. That is my point. And in my own theory, own thought process, if a dinosaur would look more attractive for being bigger and more dinosaur-like, if it grew a feather or anything like a feather, the other dinosaurs would be like, bro, you're weird. Not, oh, that one's more attractive.
No, okay. Look, if what you're saying about putting a bigger blue dot on the chest of a peacock allows it to be more attractive, why aren't more male peacocks having bigger blue dots on their chest? Wouldn't that characteristic be selected for and then bred to the max in the evolutionary theory, if what you're saying is true? But when we put a new introduction into the genome, it shows a difference? I'm sorry to tell you, if it was the fact that feathers were meant for mating, we would see peak feather evolution for the fact that it is designed and suited for mating and should not be messed with by outside sources. If they were truly evolved, if the feathers were truly evolved for mating, the purpose of mating, they would be optimized for mating, as the theory of natural selection would suggest, because the peacocks with the bigger blue dots on their chest would mate more than the ones that don't, thereby making the bigger blue dotted peacocks majority of the population. So if you're telling me that feathers are evolved for mating, then they should be optimized based on the millions of years that they've been evolved to this point. We should not be able to come in with an unknown variable and change that. They should be evolved at max peak right now over the millions of years. I'm sorry, what you are saying doesn't make sense. Feathers are not meant for mating. If that was the case, we wouldn't be able to mess with it like that. They would be optimized over the millions of years of natural selection. Checkmate.
So first, let me state that I did not say that the blue dot experiment was the peacocks. I was using peacocks as a separate secondary example. Though your statement still holds up, so I will address the statement. Feathers are used for many things. Flight is one, mating is another, water insulation is another, warmth is another. They're used for many things. What I would say is, because I don't believe in evolution the way that some people do, I just believe in like microevolution. I would say there are genetic limitations. For example, peak health in humanity is considered most attractive. Would you rather date a morbidly obese person or someone who has a healthy body? You date someone who's more healthy. Well, you only have so much health you can acquire. There are limitations. And it gets to the point where maybe the birds with the biggest blue dots are the most visible and they get eaten the most. So, there are also other limitations. As I said, because of the genetic limitations, where birds become more infertile or other creatures become more infertile, the more genetically messed up they get. You end up getting where something gets so crazy that it stops being able to be breeded. And that's what I'm getting at, is they may be max evolved or max created. And there's just limitations that keep them from being max one thing at the deficit of everything else. Like, max breeding ability for the loss of being able to fly away from your predators doesn't help you. So just because bird feathers are used for the practice of mating doesn't mean that their only purpose is for the practice of mating. Sometimes it's
you're missing the point, right? If this is on evolution, which is a theory based on natural selection, okay, right? And the idea of evolution is to pass down your genes. You are literally tying feathers to the most important aspect of evolution. And you're saying that they were evolved to reproduce. The issue being is that they're saying that it's been over millions of years. So by now, you would think it would be optimized. We shouldn't be able to come in with an unknown variable and change it. I don't know how I can explain this any other way, right? This is through natural selection. You're talking about mating. This is the thing that makes evolution work. And if you're telling me that the appearance of the bird is based on the feather, then the feather should have been optimized based on natural selection. There's no getting around this circle. It's locked in.
Hold on, I was muted. I will agree with you that evolution doesn't work. However, I will also state that there is a peak optimization. And that peak optimization might not be what we think it is. There are people in the chat saying evolution keeps going. It never optimizes. It never is at its peak. Actually, atheist scientists agree that there is at a point when the creature has evolved to a point where it cannot go anywhere else. They call
that's what they call punctuated equilibrium. You people are retarded. Evolution absolutely stops.
If you let me finish. What I'm trying to describe here, and Dustin understands it, is there becomes a point where the creature's evolved so much in its area that it can't change into something completely different. It would go through too much downgrading evolution before it could start going back up into that new species. That's what atheist evolutionists believe. Now, my point is, and I don't believe that, my point is, going back to Dustin here, is there is a genetic code that has limitations. So not going to what they believe, because what they believe is stupid. What they believe with evolution doesn't work. It's never been proven. But what we believe is there is a microevolution. Birds can have a bigger beak, a smaller beak. They can have different colored eyes, maybe. You know, they can have different changes that are small. There are limitations, though. And so they have the max that their DNA lets them have. And
they will take an example.
Maybe you can do that.
They will take an example of a fossil and claim that that's evidence of evolution, while simultaneously telling you that evolution doesn't work on a singular scale like that, where it's over a population, right? But if that's the case, if it's a population that evolves as a whole, why are you pointing to a singular creature and claiming that that's evolution? That's evidence of evolution. That's an out and out blatant contradiction. It's blatant.
DC Me just did not understand what I said. He's like, there is no such thing as downgrading evolution. Evolution just is progress. Yes, the whole theory of evolution, which keep in mind I don't agree with, but I will humor. The whole theory of evolution is that it only progresses. And the whole understanding is a species can get so progressed in its one niche, its one specialty, that to go anywhere else would be a downgrade. And that's the point. The reason why evolutionists claim that we have diversity is that one evolved this way, one evolved this way, and then to go over here would be degrading before upgrading. And therefore, this creature cannot evolve into this creature because they separated. That is the theory of evolution when it comes to speciation and creatures diverting into different species. That is why certain creatures cannot become into other creatures according to evolution. Now, I don't believe in that. I think that's just
recapitulate. Philology recapitulates some bullshit. I can't remember what it is. But yeah, that's what they're claiming there.
And that's your guys' own belief. Like, now, I can't say you specifically because you don't understand what I'm saying, apparently. But I'm saying this is what atheists who have the degrees and make the statements say. I'm regurgitating what they said. And that is their statement to why we have different species, why we don't just have one type of animal on the entire planet, and why we have all this variation.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if you have a characteristic that's being evolved for, right, and you can come up with something that's better than nature, I'm questioning your idea of what evolution is, because evolution is not supposed to work on a perfect scale. It's supposed to work on a good enough scale.
Well, now, what I will say is even humans use makeup to look more attractive. Putting makeup on a bird to make it look more attractive to other birds is not a crazy concept.
What I'm telling you is, if it's evolution, then why aren't women coming out with prettier faces?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
It's a simple question. Can I get an answer? How many generations of putting makeup on your naked? How many generations of putting makeup on your face before you start seeing prettier women?
Mathematically speaking, people say that Asians are the most pretty people, and I'd have to say they do tend to look pretty pleasant. So maybe
generations of plastic surgery has not produced a more attractive woman. Okay,
well,
I have a hard time thinking. I have a hard time believing. I have a hard time believing that feathers as an attractiveness would evolve. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Because if we see the more attractive birds like mating, wouldn't we see a generation of super attractive birds eventually? Right? We don't see that though, do we? It doesn't make sense, right? If you're telling me that the optimum evolutionary form for mating for women is makeup on their face, then there's something wrong with the evolutionary process because they have to change their appearance. They're not evolving towards attractiveness. They're evolving away from attractiveness in every freaking concept of the word.
Okay, so I looked it up, by the way, just to go back to that point. I said, what is it called when a creature has evolved to its end and cannot evolve anymore? And it said, these are known as living fossils. It's when a creature has evolved to a point where it refuses to evolve any further. And it can go a ridiculously long amount of time without evolving any further. It goes on to say some other things, but basically everything we just said. It's evolutionary dead end, or also known as a like evolutionary stasis.
They also call it extinction.
Well, no, like there's certain creatures, like it says the platypus and the horseshoe crab are creatures that have not gone extinct. They call them living fossils because they have lived for so long, but yet they refuse to evolve any further.
Well, yeah. If you look at the bees are the same way. If you look at ants are the same way.
Yeah, well, that's what they explain. Because they say that the horseshoe crabs lived for millions of years or whatever, and we over here at the Creationists can't believe that nothing lived over 6,000 years ago, apparently. Like 6,000, 7,000 years. Hey, it's 9/11. That's.
Oh, boys! I'm back!
It's like 11 minutes past when I wanted to be here. I'm ready to go.
Well, I just want to say it's good to have you back in front of the camera again, Jeremiah. You know, we were missing you during your illness period. You know,
I will be present Saturday, whether it is a recorded show or if I'm going to be talking to atheists. I will be present Saturday. Dargesh says, making him nervous. You are just not correct on evolution there. Oh man, I guess I'm wrong. Man, you just won. That makes so much sense. You've convinced me now.
You know, it's amazing how they claim to have superior knowledge of a thing and then blame us for not understanding the thing and then not have any ability to explain why we don't understand. He just points his finger and says, you don't understand.
Not to mention, every time I Google something, we're right and they're wrong. And it's
I imagine that has something to do with the way they're searching.
It's the evolutionary beliefs we're talking about. It's something that you would think that they might be closer to because they don't like God, yet they're the one that's wrong. They don't like it because it looks stupid when you actually talk about it. Like evolutionists oftentimes believe that the universe came from nothing. But when you tell them that they realize that sounds crazy. So they say, no. And I say, okay, well, where did you come from? I came from an ape-like creature. Where the ape-like creature came from? Well, it came from a creature, back, from an ocean, from a soup. Lightning hit the soup. Okay, well, now you're getting pretty crazy. You're saying it came from soup. You go back further. Where did that come from? Well, it came from elements from stars. Well, where did those come from? Well, it takes 2 stars to make 1 star. Well, that's stupid, but okay, let's keep going back.
Wait. I just thought of something. If feathers are meant if feathers are evolved for mating purposes, why do we have transgender in the human race?
What that mean, nigga?
Why haven't we evolved to be able to mate with them?
To get back to what I'm saying. So you go further back, and then you say, well, they were the original pieces of matter, quarks and, all of that whatnot as you go further back. And I can't even think of all the names of those pieces. But these, very small pieces of, just matter. And you say, well, where did those come from? And they say, well, there was this big bang. And you say, well, where did the big bang come from? National Geographic and many other places are cited saying In the beginning, there was nothing. There was literally nothing. Now, again, not everybody believes in that theory. There are others that believe in an infinite universe, where the universe just infinitely keeps going, which it has its own problems because you need an infinite amount of energy. But at the end of the day, in the beginning, they believe in one of two things: nothing or dirt, pure matter, which is essentially dirt. And in the beginning, we believe in God. I'd rather believe in God than dirt, as far as an infinite source goes. So that's where I'm going to leave it. If anybody else wants to say anything, I'll let you guys have your final remarks. But I'm tired.
Hey, buddy, I just hope you feel better. It was good making fun of these stupid atheists again. Actually, it's becoming more of a favorite pastime. I don't think we're going to save any of these people, Jeremiah. It sucks. But, if God had intended us to be able to save, I think he would have made us Jesus.
All right. Well, I'm getting tired, getting close to bedtime. I got to work all week this coming week. So you guys have a great night. Hopefully next week I will be there in person in Tennessee next week, if all goes well. Jeremiah?